The phone screen cast a pale, cold light in the tiny apartment, illuminating Imani Jackson's tear-streaked face as she stared at the message she couldn't bring herself to send. It was 2:13 a.m. in West Philadelphia, and the April air was cold enough to see her breath. The radiator in the corner was silent, a cold metal skeleton. The only sound in the cramped one-bedroom flat was the thin, sharp cry of her daughter, Zoe. The room smelled of stale air and the metallic tang of fear. Imani tried to quiet Zoe, bouncing her gently. She offered a bottle filled with lukewarm water and a little sugar, her grandmother's old desperation measure for a hungry baby. Zoe turned her head away, her cries becoming weaker, more insistent. Those cries pierced Imani's heart, a soundtrack to her failure. She grabbed her phone and opened her bank app, pointlessly checking again. The balance remained unchanged, $2.17. Her gaze drifted to the wall, where her certified nursing assistant certification hung in a cheap frame. It felt like a cruel joke. She had done everything right. She had studied, worked hard, and been proud of her skills. But one bad relationship, a man who vanished the moment she told him she was pregnant, and a system not built to catch women like her had left her stranded. She wasn't just poor, she was a statistic. She could feel the heavy gaze of stereotypes she'd fought her whole life. Poor black single mother, settling on her shoulders like a shroud. The shame was suffocating, not just the shame of poverty, but the shame of asking for help. It felt like confirming every negative assumption the world already held against her. But Zoe's cries were growing weaker. Pride didn't matter. She thought of her brother Marcus. They hadn't spoken in 3 years, not since the blowout fight over Zoe's father, the very man who had abandoned her. She had chosen him over her brother, and her brother had been right. Swallowing the acid of her pride, her fingers trembled as she typed the number she still knew by heart. Marcus, it's Imani. I need $85 for baby formula. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. I'm sorry. She stared at that last word. Sorry, feeling the immense weight of it. Sorry for asking, sorry for failing, sorry for existing. She sent the text into the void, her heart pounding, praying he hadn't changed his number again. A minute later, the phone buzzed. Her heart leaped with a desperate hope. But the reply was cold and unfamiliar. Wrong number. That single reply, wrong number, is absolutely heartbreaking. Imani is desperate, with only $2.17 in her account and a hungry baby in her arms. If you are still watching and you feel for Imani's struggle, please comment with the number 85 below for the $85 she so desperately needs to let us know you are here with her on this journey. Here at Black Brilliance, we are dedicated to sharing these powerful stories of resilience and unexpected turns of fate. If you haven't already, I truly encourage you to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss what happens in Chapter 2. Your support helps us continue to create compelling content that inspires and uplifts our community. Now, let's see what happens next. Imani's hope vanished, replaced by a cold wave of humiliation. She just begged a total stranger for money. She typed a quick, "Sorry to bother you," her fingers trembling, and tossed the phone onto the thin mattress. Across the city, in a sterile, minimalist penthouse study overlooking Rittenhouse Square, Arthur Pendleton, 42, stared at his screen. He had been reviewing quarterly projections, annoyed by the 2:13 a.m. interruption. He was about to delete the thread when the words, "baby formula," caught his eye. He thought of his own mother, decades ago, and the nights they'd gone hungry. The desperation in the text felt raw and real. He paused, then typed back, "Is your baby really out of formula?" Imani's phone buzzed. She read the message, her suspicion immediately rising. What kind of sick joke was this? "Yes," she typed, her reply defensive. "But that's not your problem. I'll figure it out." The response came quickly. "A baby shouldn't go hungry." Then another, "There's a 24-hour Walmart on Evergreen Drive." What kind does she need? This had to be a scam. The world Imani knew didn't give help for free, especially not to people who looked like her. Still, what choice did she have? She typed the brand name. A few minutes passed. "Order will be ready in an hour. Show your ID at pickup." With Zoe bundled in a worn carrier, Imani walked the dark, empty blocks to the Walmart. The fluorescent lights of the 24-hour store felt harsh and exposing. She approached the pickup counter, bracing for the employee to laugh in her face. "Pick up for Imani Jackson." The employee vanished and returned with a heavy shopping bag. "There must be a mistake," Imani whispered, peering inside and seeing not one, but 6 large cans of formula. I only needed one." The employee checked the screen board. "Nope, order for Imani Jackson. 6 cans. Paid for by, It just says, wrong number." Imani pushed the cart outside, her legs shaking. Standing under the buzzing parking lot lights, she looked at the receipt, then at the formula. This was enough for a month. The sheer, unexpected, anonymous kindness from a stranger broke through the layers of her cynicism and shame. She leaned against the cart, crying silently. Back home, Zoe was fed and sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. Imani picked up her phone. "Thank you doesn't cover it. I wish I could repay you someday." His reply was immediate. "Take care of your daughter." That's repayment enough. For the first time in months, Imani had a full pantry of formula and a sliver of hope. Then, 3 days later, her phone buzzed with a text from the same unknown number. Imani was surprised. She assumed their strange transaction was over. The text was simple, "Good morning. Just checking in. How are you and Zoe today?" A warmth spread through her chest. It was the first time in memory anyone had simply checked in. They exchanged a few texts. Imani, feeling cautiously optimistic, found herself being honest. "We're okay," she typed. "Zoe slept for 4 hours straight." He replied, "And how are you doing?" "Really?" Imani hesitated. The immediate crisis, food, was solved, but the next one, rent, was looming. "Worried about rent," she admitted. "I'm looking for work, but it's complicated with a baby. I'm a certified nursing assistant, but my leave was unpaid and the hospital is downsizing." In his office, Arthur Pendleton read her reply. He had already had his assistant, Eleanor, discreetly find Imani Jackson's background after the Walmart order. He knew she was a CNA, knew her address, and knew her financial situation was precarious. He respected her medical background and her pride. This wasn't someone looking for a handout. This was someone needing a hand up. "A friend of mine runs a medical transcription company," he typed. "They're looking for remote workers with medical terminology knowledge. It's flexible. Would you be interested?" Imani's heart pounded. It sounded too good to be true. "I'd definitely be interested," she replied. Arthur made the connection. An hour later, Imani's phone rang. "Hello, is this Imani Jackson?" a professional warm voice asked. "My name is Mariah Johnson, from Medscript Transcription Services." Imani, bouncing a fussy Zoe on her hip, nervously took the interview. Mariah was impressed with Imani's CNA knowledge. She explained the pay was per audio minute, the hours were completely flexible, and they had a special program for parents of young children. By the end of the call, Imani had the job. She was crying tears of pure joy when she picked up her phone to text the stranger. "I got the job. I start training tomorrow. Thank you. By the way, my name is Imani." His reply, "I'm glad, Imani. You earned it. My name is Arthur." What an incredible turning point. Imani didn't just get temporary help. She got a real, flexible job that respects her skills. And they finally shared their names, Imani and Arthur. This connection, born from a mistake, is becoming something real. If you are still watching this video and find this story valuable, please comment with the number 8 below to let me know you're still here. Here at Black Brilliance, we believe in the power of these moments, stories that celebrate resilience and the kindness of strangers turning into a life-changing connection. And if you haven't subscribed, I truly recommend you do and turn on that bell so you don't miss what Arthur asks her next. Your support helps us continue to create amazing content that informs and inspires you. Now, let's keep going. Imani finally had a steady income and food for Zoe, but one piece of her life remained broken: her brother Marcus. Their text conversations had become a daily comfort. Arthur was easy to talk to, kind, respectful, and surprisingly funny. He asked about her training at Medscript, and he loved hearing about Zoe. After a week of building this new trust, Arthur gently broached the subject. "If you don't mind me asking, what happened with the brother you were trying to contact?" Imani confessed the whole story. She told him about the fight 3 years ago over her ex, Zoe's father. Marcus warned me he was bad news, she typed, shame creeping in. I was stubborn. I told him to stay out of my business. The last words I said to him were awful. She explained she'd been too ashamed to call and admit he was right, and by the time she was desperate enough to try, his number had changed. There was a pause before Arthur's reply. Family relationships can be complicated. Would you like to find him? Imani hesitated. It felt like an enormous favor, far more than asking for formula or a job connection. I can't ask you to do that, Arthur. You're not asking, he replied. I'm offering. Her desperation to reconnect, to let Marcus know he was an uncle, won out. Yes, she typed. More than anything, Arthur, true to his word, acted with quiet efficiency. He had his assistant, Eleanor, run a discreet search, not as a corporate inquiry, but as a simple information pull. Within 2 days, he texted Imani. I have a confirmed phone number and an address for a Marcus Jackson master electrician in West Philly. Imani's hands trembled so badly she almost dropped her phone. She stared at the number. What if he hung up? What if he still hated her? Taking a deep breath, she dialed. It rang once, twice. A cautious, familiar voice answered. Hello. Marcus, she whispered, her voice cracking. It's Imani. There was a long, sharp silence. For a heart-stopping moment, she thought he'd hung up. Then his voice, rough with emotion. Faith? Is this really you? He always called her by her middle name, Faith. He came over that night. The moment he saw her standing in the doorway, the 3 years of anger and silence melted away. They hugged fiercely, both apologizing at once. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, she cried. He stepped inside and then he saw the bassinet. You have a baby? Imani nodded, lifting Zoe into her arms. Marcus, this is Zoe. Your niece. He approached with awe, kneeling as he looked at the baby. His voice cracked. She has mom's eyes. Marcus held Zoe for the first time, stroking her small cheek. I'm not going anywhere, he promised Imani, his eyes fierce. Not ever again. That night, Imani texted Arthur. He was here. He held his niece. I don't know how to thank you, Arthur. You found my brother. Their nightly phone calls had become routine, a safe space. But Imani was about to learn that the Arthur she knew, the kind voice on the phone, was only half the story. His voice was tense when he called. Imani, he started, I haven't been entirely forthcoming about what I do. Imani laughed. What, are you a spy? He didn't laugh back. I'm the CEO of Pendleton Industries, he said quietly. Imani went silent, the name echoing in her mind. Pendleton Industries. They owned half the city. He quickly explained he was hosting his foundation's annual charity gala, this year focusing on single-parent support programs. I'd like you to come, he said, vulnerability in his voice. As my guest. With Marcus agreeing to babysit Zoe, Imani found herself standing in a sleek black town car a week later, wearing a stunning deep blue gown a stylist had delivered to her door. She felt like she was in a costume. Arthur met her in a private foyer, looking impossibly handsome in a tuxedo. When they entered the grand ballroom, Imani felt the stares. The room was glittering, opulent, and overwhelmingly white. She felt her old anxieties return. She was one of the only black women in the room not wearing a uniform. Arthur never left her side, protectively guiding her. But when he was momentarily pulled away by a senator, a woman next to her, dripping in diamonds, leaned in. So, how did you and Arthur meet? Imani, uncomfortable, said, We connected by chance. The woman, Mrs. Porter, smiled thinly. How nice of Thomas. He's always been so generous with his charitable efforts. The implication stung like a slap. Imani was his latest charity case. Before Imani could respond, the lights dimmed. Arthur was on stage. He announced a new $50 million donation to establish housing and job training for single parents. Then, he looked directly at Imani, his voice cutting through the room. As I've learned recently, what single parents need most isn't a handout. It's an opportunity. It was a direct rebuke to the snobbery, a public validation of her dignity. Later, he led her onto the dance floor. He held her close. I meant every word, he murmured. Imani, I think I'm falling in love with you. She looked up, seeing not the billionaire CEO, but just Arthur, the man who had answered her text at 2 a.m. I think I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. He leaned down and kissed her gently. He rested his forehead against hers. What happens now? Imani smiled, finally feeling like she belonged, not in the ballroom, but with him. Now we figure it out. Together. 1 year later, Imani Jackson stood in front of a mirror, not in a borrowed gown, but in an ivory silk wedding dress. The past year had been a whirlwind of beautiful, normal moments. They hadn't rushed. They had dated, slowly blending their lives. Arthur had proven to be a natural with Zoe, who now shrieked "Our Thursday" whenever he walked in the door. Imani had been promoted to team leader at MedScript, her confidence blossoming. They had moved into a new penthouse together, not his old one, but a new home they chose, with a room for Marcus, who was now a constant, beloved presence in their lives. Now she was ready. The ceremony was intimate, held in the building's private garden overlooking the Philadelphia skyline, just as she'd requested. Marcus, his eyes shining with pride, walked her down the aisle. Zoe, now 18 months old, toddled ahead as the flower girl, dumping her entire basket of petals in one spot by the first row, making everyone laugh. Arthur waited for her under a simple arch of roses, his eyes never leaving her. They read their own vows. His voice was thick with emotion as he spoke. When you texted me by accident, you reminded me what truly matters. Her voice was steady as she replied, You saw me when I felt invisible. I promise to be grateful every day for the wrong number that led me to you. Later, at the small reception, Arthur pulled her aside to the balcony. I have your wedding gift, he murmured. He told her the East Side Community Initiative was complete. The renovations in her old neighborhood were done. You didn't just change my life, Imani, he said, taking her hands. You changed how my company works. You brought humanity back to my work. But that's not the gift, he continued. I am establishing the Zoe Scholarship, a full tuition and living stipend program for single parents going back to school. Imani's eyes filled with tears. Arthur, that's. And I need someone to run it, he finished. Someone who understands. I was hoping you would. She stared at him, seeing the full circle. From needing $85 to overseeing a multi-million-dollar foundation. This wasn't a gift. It was a partnership. Yes, she breathed. Yes, I will. They watched Zoe dancing unevenly with Marcus. Arthur kissed his wife. Best mistake I ever made, Imani whispered. Best wrong number anyone ever dialed, Arthur replied. From a single desperate text message sent at 2 a.m., an entire family was built, reminding us that true connection often begins when we least expect it. Imani and Arthur's journey shows that when we choose to look past the labels society imposes, rich or poor, black or white, we open the door to profound kindness and healing. If this story of hope touched your heart, please share that warmth with someone you care about. We invite you to join our community and discover more stories that celebrate this kind of strength by subscribing to Black Brilliance.